The movie starts with a scene of a village where we see a farmer with his sheep and goats by a lake. He goes there to catch fish while it's raining. Meanwhile, his neighbors are busy catching frogs nearby. Suddenly, they notice a very large egg, and inside, something was moving. Seeing this, they all become startled and frightened, but also very curious. However, the farmer and his neighbors were unaware that a huge monster was approaching them. Just then, the monster comes out of the water and starts attacking them. Terrified by the sight, they begin screaming loudly. The screams were so loud that the farmer's wife hears them and rushes to the spot. But when she arrives, she only finds her husband's coat and nothing else. It becomes clear that the monster had killed everyone, including her husband, and eaten them. This incident is soon reported to the police, and a detective named James takes on the case. He arrives at the scene with his team to investigate. Upon seeing the wounds on the bodies, he realizes that this was indeed the work of a massive and dangerous monster, which must have escaped through the water. Next, we see a little girl named May, who is strolling near the same lake with her brother. She notices a large footprint, but ignores it and continues walking. Suddenly, her attention is drawn to the large egg, which she picks up and takes home. Her brother is also excited upon seeing the egg, thinking they've got a great meal in store. He begins preparing to cook the egg, but their older sister stops them from breaking it, warning that it might be a monster's egg, and breaking it could release the creature. May, annoyed, takes the egg outside and sits by the lake with it. The egg was still moving, and whatever was inside was trying to get out. May sits by the lake, waiting for the creature to emerge, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. The giant monster, which had been devouring animals, was now heading towards her. May had been gone for a while, so her brother and sister go searching for her, and they eventually arrive at the lake. We then see May's shoe floating in the water, which makes her sister burst into tears, thinking that May had drowned. Unable to control her emotions, her brother jumps into the water to find May. But soon they realize something is terribly wrong as they sense someone or something approaching. Suddenly, a monstrous creature emerges from the lake and attacks May's brother. He barely escapes with his life, and both siblings start running. The creature, now out of the water, begins chasing them. As they flee, the creature enters the fields and starts attacking the farmers working there. People scatter, trying to save their lives, but the creature's speed is too great, and it kills them all, one by one. Only Lynn and her brother manage to survive by hiding in the bushes. Seizing an opportunity, Lynn takes her brother to the road, determined to escape. Her brother is severely injured, but they find a passing car and drive away. This is how they barely survive the bloodthirsty monster and escape the dangerous area. However, they don't realize that the attack on humanity by this monster has only just begun as the creature moves towards the city to wreak havoc. Lynn takes her brother to the hospital, where doctors treat his wounds. The police soon hear about the monster's attack and learn that there are two survivors, Lynn and her brother. The police captain questions Lynn, and she explains about the monstrous creature from the lake that mercilessly killed all the farmers. But the captain doesn't believe her and leaves to return to the police station, unaware that the creature had already attacked a nearby center, killing everyone inside. The captain soon gets word about the attack and rushes to the center, but by the time he arrives, it's too late. All he finds are bodies, and no one is left alive. Seeing the condition of the bodies, the captain finally believes that the monster from the lake was responsible for all this destruction. He begins to plan how to kill the creature with his team, but it was discovered that after the attacks, the creature retreats back to the lake, using it as a hiding place. The team now had to figure out how to capture the monster, so the captain forms two separate teams, one of which is led by Detective James. They devise a plan to capture the creature. Just as James is about to leave, he receives more bad news. He has to go to his daughter's school. James' daughter had a troubled reputation and frequently caused trouble at school. Today, she had created yet another scene, forcing James to visit the school. After apologizing to the principal, he picks up his daughter and rushes back to the lake to lead his team and finalize their plan. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Lynn is taking care of her brother, who has a nightmare where he's fighting the creature, trying to defeat it. He wakes up suddenly and attempts to talk to his sister, but realizes something horrifying: the attack has robbed him of his ability to speak. Lynn also notices strange changes in her brother's behavior and physical condition. His body begins secreting a liquid similar to what had covered the creature's egg, and he starts having bizarre, monstrous thoughts. It seems as though he had become mentally connected to the creature. Whenever the creature attacked, her brother could see it happening through the creature's eyes. In a panic, her brother quickly writes down everything on a piece of paper, revealing the creature's current location to Lynn. She rushes to the captain, showing him the paper, and explaining that her brother can lead them to the monster. Lynn then brings her brother to the center, and he begins guiding the team toward the creature. As they follow him, he points toward a building and says that the creature is inside. The team throws bombs in the creature's direction, but it does no harm to the monster. Instead, the creature becomes enraged and starts attacking them, picking them up and throwing them aside. However, the team manages to surround the creature from all sides with their deadly weapons, ready to strike. Finally, they succeed in trapping the monster in a net. However, as they are injuring the monster, Lynn notices that her brother is in pain as well. Realizing that her brother is somehow connected to the creature, she rushes to the spot where they were attacking it. She pleads with the police captain to stop, saying that if they kill the monster, her brother will die too. Hearing this, the captain checks and sees that the same marks on the creature's body are appearing on Lynn's brother as well. With no other option, the captain decides to capture the creature instead of killing it, locking it in a truck to keep it alive. He instructs his team to keep a close watch on the creature, but not everyone agrees with this decision. The townspeople surround the police, demanding that the monster be killed, which means Lynn's brother's life is in danger as well. Meanwhile, Detective James and his team arrive at the other side of the lake, where they discover a massive egg and large footprints. From the size of the prints, James realizes that this must belong to the main lake monster, which is still in the water, and that the creature causing the havoc in the city is smaller in comparison. This leads James to conclude that there are multiple monsters involved. Just then, they receive news of a survivor who escaped the monster's attack. The survivor turns out to be none other than May. Detective James is shocked to see that May had been in the presence of the monster for so long but was still alive. Even more surprising, she was carrying the egg she had taken from her home. James sits in his car, pondering what to do next, when suddenly he notices a massive brownish figure rising from the lake. It's the largest lake monster, and the footprints belong to it. The creature that was causing the destruction in the city was merely its companion. As the team starts firing bullets at the creature, James rushes to the scene, but by the time he arrives, he finds nothing but blood splattered on the cars. Realizing the giant monster had killed everyone, his attention then falls on an officer hiding in a car, barely alive. But before they can process anything further, the gigantic lake monster reappears, more terrifying than ever. James hides behind the car, but he suddenly realizes that his daughter is still in the car with May. Using the radio, he tells his daughter to stay hidden. Just then, his daughter notices the egg shaking, and as soon as the lake monster sees the egg, it starts moving toward the car, because the egg belongs to it. Frightened, James' daughter begins to panic, but May calms her down. Both of them are terrified as the lake monster reaches the car and starts ramming into it, trying to retrieve its stolen egg. The force of the impacts puts their lives in danger, and James grows more and more concerned for his daughter's safety. Without thinking, he steps out and starts shooting at the monster to distract it. The monster, enraged, lashes out with its tail, sending James flying into the water. Seeing this, the remaining officer rushes to help James out of the water and quickly removes the gas tank from the car, while the monster remains focused on getting its egg back. Soon, the monster shatters the car window. While May escapes unharmed, James' daughter is trapped inside. Just before the monster can kill her, the officer throws the gas tank at the creature and shoots it, causing a massive explosion. However, to his horror, the explosion doesn't harm the monster, which now turns its attention toward the officer, roaring menacingly. The officer, frightened, flees the scene. The lake monster then returns to the car to retrieve its egg. This time, it successfully pulls the egg out with its claws. Seeing this, James' daughter immediately exits the car and starts running, but she soon realizes the monster was waiting for her to emerge. It rushes toward her, lets out a fierce roar, and attacks her with its claws. Watching this, James rushes to save his daughter. He shoots at another gas tank, causing yet another explosion in front of the monster. But again, it seems unaffected. Leaving James' daughter behind, the monster advances toward James, growling ferociously. Before it can kill James, the creature hears the cry of its companion being attacked in the city. Hearing this, the monster abandons James and starts heading toward the city to save its companion. Taking advantage of the situation, James grabs his injured daughter and starts rushing her to a nearby hospital. However, on the way, he realizes that she is in critical condition, bleeding heavily from her wounds. He desperately tries to stop the bleeding, but before James can save her, his daughter succumbs to her injuries right in front of him. James starts crying, deeply saddened by his daughter's death. Meanwhile, the police captain is desperately trying to convince everyone not to kill the creature, unaware that a massive giant lake monster is heading straight toward them, destroying everything in its path. Within minutes, the giant lake monster reaches the location where the other creature is locked in a car. Seeing its companion trapped, the lake monster becomes enraged and starts attacking everything in sight. Terrified, people begin running to save their lives, but the monster relentlessly assaults them. Focused on freeing its companion, chaos erupts everywhere. The monster traps a few people inside a bus, and as it moves closer, the people scream in fear. However, to everyone's surprise, the monster doesn't harm them. Instead, it moves forward to rescue its companion. Witnessing this, the people realize that the monster is not here to harm them, but to save its friend. They rush to inform the police, telling them that the monster's real target is the captain because he captured its companion. Upon hearing this, the captain regrets his decision, realizing that they shouldn't have trapped the lake creature. He orders his team to abandon the vehicle containing the creature and get as far away as possible, because the giant lake monster is coming for it. Everyone quickly boards a bus and leaves the city to save their lives. At this point, Lynn's brother realizes that he has been infected by the monster's attack and believes he shouldn't go with the others, as he could be a danger to them. Ignoring Lynn's pleas, he says his final goodbye to his sister and heads toward the car where the creature is being held. Lynn's brother wants to protect everyone from the giant lake monster, so he starts driving the vehicle containing the creature away from the city. The trapped creature lets out a loud cry, which the lake monster hears, causing it to chase after the vehicle. However, Lynn's brother speeds out of the city, successfully saving everyone. Lynn is heartbroken by her brother's sacrifice. The next morning, when the survivors return, Lynn finds a baby and embraces it, crying heavily. Meanwhile, James, still mourning his daughter, is determined to avenge her death by killing the monster. Deep down, he suspects there's something more to this monster that he has yet to discover. James discovered that Lynn's brother, the creature, and the monster had all mysteriously disappeared. When he discussed this with the captain, he was ordered not to reopen the case because the captain didn't want more people to know about the lake monsters or create any additional threats. Frustrated, James quit his job on the police force, determined to avenge his daughter's death. However, his department had been preventing him from doing so. 5 years passed. By now, Lynn had grown older, and she still visited the lake regularly, unaware that James had been searching for her all this time. Today, she sat by the lake, accompanied by her farm animals. James, who had also arrived, sensed that something was wrong. Suddenly, the lake monster emerged from the water, devouring one of the sheep. Strangely, the monster didn't harm Lynn. In fact, they appeared to be quite close, as if they were friends. This sight enraged James. Later, when Lynn returned home, James followed her. Confronting her, he accused her of being responsible for his daughter's death. But before the argument could escalate, a smaller lake monster suddenly attacked James. Just before it could kill him, James used a flare to burn the monster's eyes, barely escaping with his life. Despite his initial intention to shoot the monster and end it, James noticed Lynn sitting beside the injured creature, her eyes filled with sadness and empathy. She felt sorry for the monster, and this made James realize that killing the monster wouldn't bring his daughter back. It would only put others in more danger. Deciding not to kill the creature, James resolved to uncover the truth about the lake monsters. Lynn took James to a hidden place and guided him into a cave on a mountainside. James ventured inside, but we see that Lynn, like her brother, had also been infected. Snake-like creatures slithered out of her mouth, indicating that her body was transforming, just as her brothers had. She, too, was turning into a monster, as anyone infected by the lake monsters would eventually transform into one themselves. James continued to cautiously advance through the caves. Along the way, he found Lynn's brother's clothes, stained with blood. As he moved further in, he spotted a light. When he reached it, he realized it was a hidden temple. The temple wasn't for any deity, but for the lake monster. The walls were painted with depictions of the monsters, all done in blood. Just before James could make sense of it all, he heard the sound of breathing behind him. Turning around, he saw a lake monster waiting there. It had been expecting James all along. The creature now intended to kill him, just as it had killed others who tried to harm it. Monsters, it seemed, loved those who loved them and would never harm such people. But if someone tried to hurt or damage the monsters, they showed no mercy in return. And so, the situation grew even more dire.